We're gonna be safe and sound tonight.
Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. See if you can fix it. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. See if you can fix it. Fix it. So fix now. You think, well, you can do this in a room. It's quite fun. Maybe your bedroom. You can sit there and just sort of meditate on it. If I wanted to spend 10 minutes making this room better, what would I have to do? But you have to ask yourself that, right? It's not a command. It's like a genuine question. And things will pop out in the room. There's a stack of papers over there that's kind of bugging you, and things will pop out in the room. You know that maybe a little order there would be a good thing. And things will pop out in the room. There's some rubbish behind your computer monitor, and things will pop out in the room. The room would be slightly better. It was a little less dusty, and the cables weren't all tangled up. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. See if you can fix it. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. See if you can fix it. So fix it. Now you think, well, if you allow yourself just to consider the expanse in which you exist at that moment, there'll be all sorts of things that'll pop out in it that you could just fix. And, you know, I might say, well, if you were coming to see me for psychotherapy, the easiest thing for us to do first would just be to get you to organize your room. You think, well, is that psychotherapy? And the answer is, well, it depends on how you conceive the limits of your being. And I would say, start where you can start. You know, if something announces itself to you, which is a strange way of thinking about it, as in need of repair, that you could repair, then, hey, fix it. You fix 100 things like that, your life will be a lot different. Fix it. Now, I often tell people, too, fix the things you repeat every day. Fix it. Because people tend to think of those as trivial. If you can fix it. Those probably constitute 50% of your life. Fix it. And people think, well, they're mundane, I don't need to pay attention to them. It's like, no, that's exactly wrong. The things you do every day, those are the most important things you do. Hands down. So 100 adjustments to your broader domain of being, and there's a lot less rubbish around and a lot fewer traps for you to step into. Once you've got your mind and your emotions together, and once you're acting that out, then you can extend what you're willing to consider yourself and start fixing up the things that are a part of your broader extent. Now, just because things announce themselves as in need of repair doesn't mean that it's you right then and there that should repair them. You have to have some humility. You don't walk up to a helicopter that isn't working and just start tinkering away with it. You have to stay within your domain of competence. Fix it. 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 I like the idea of the room because you can do that at the drop of a hat. Go back to where you live and sit down and think, okay, I'm going to make this place better for half an hour. What should I do? And you have to ask, and things will just pop up like mad. And it's partly because your mind is a very strange thing. As soon as you give it a name, a genuine aim, it'll reconfigure the world in keeping with that aim. Be careful what you aim at. What you aim at determines the way the world manifests itself to you. And so if the world is manifesting itself in a very negative way, one thing to ask is, are you aiming at the right thing? You know, I'm not trying to reduce everybody's problems to an improper aim. People get cut off at the knees for all sorts of reasons. There's a random element to being, that's for sure. And things do happen to people. But it's still a great thing to ask.
That's the spirit of the Father. And insofar as you have a Father, you have both at the same time. You have the personal Father that's a man among other men, just like anyone else's father. But insofar as that man is your father, that means that he's something different than just another person. And what he is the incarnation of the spirit of the Father. And to see that, to disrespect that carelessly, Noah makes a mistake, right? He produces wine and gets himself drunk, and you might say, well, if he's sprawled out there for everyone to see, it's hardly Ham's fault if he stumbles across him. But the book is laying out a danger. The danger is that maybe you catch your father at his most vulnerable moment, and if you're disrespectful, then you transgress against the spirit of the Father. And if you transgress against the spirit of the Father and lose respect for the spirit of the Father, then that is likely to transform you into a slave. A slave. That's a very interesting idea. It's particularly germane, I think, to our current cultural situation. We're pushed constantly to see the nakedness of our Father, so to speak, because of the intense criticism that's directed towards our culture, the patriarchal culture, so to speak. We're constantly exposing its weaknesses and vulnerabilities and, let's say, nakedness. There's nothing wrong with criticism, but the thing about criticism is the purpose of criticism is to separate the wheat from the chaff. It's not to burn everything to the ground, right? It's to say, well, we're going to carefully look at this. We're going to carefully differentiate. We're going to keep what's good and we're going to move away from what's bad. But the point of the criticism isn't to identify everything as bad. It's to separate what's good from what's bad so that you can retain what's good and move towards it. Retain what's good and move towards it, so that you can retain what's good and move towards it. Retain what's good and move towards it. And to be careless at that is deadly, because you're inhabited by the spirit of the Father, right? Insofar as you're a cultural construction, to be disrespectful towards that means to undermine the very structure that makes you not all of what you are, certainly a good portion of what you are. If you pull the foundation out from underneath that, what do you have left? You can hardly manage on your own. It's just not possible. You're a cultural creation. You're a cultural creation. Retain what's good and move towards it. Retain what's good and move towards it, so that you can retain what's good and move towards it. Retain what's good and move towards it. Retain what's good and move towards it. Retain what's good and move towards it, so that you can retain what's good and move towards it. Retain what's good and move towards it. And so Ham makes this desperate error and is careless about exposing himself to the vulnerability of his father, or something like that. He does it without sufficient respect. And the judgment is that not only will he be a slave, but so will all of his descendants. And he's contrasted with the other two sons who, I suppose, are willing to give their father the benefit of the doubt, something like that. And so when they see him in a compromising position, they handle it with respect and don't capitalize on it. And maybe that makes them strong. That's what it seems to me. And so I think that's what that story means. It has something to do with respect. Something something to do with respect. Something to do with respect. Something to do with respect. You know, and the funny thing about having respect for your culture, and I suppose that's partly why I'm doing the biblical stories, is because they're part of my culture. They're part of our culture, perhaps, but they're certainly part of my culture. And it seems to me that it's worthwhile to treat that with respect, to see what you can glean from it. And not kick it when it's down, let's say. It has something to do with respect. 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 It has something to do with respect. 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 So that's how the story of Noah ends. The thing too is Noah is actually a pretty decent incarnation of the spirit of the Father, which I suppose is one of the things that makes Ham's misstep more egregious. I mean, Noah just built an ark and got everybody through the flood, man, you know? It's not so bad, and so maybe the fact that he happened to drink too much wine one day wasn't enough to justify humiliating him. And you know, I don't think it's pushing the limits of symbolic interpretation to note on a daily basis that we're all contained in an ark. You could think about that as the ark that's been bequeathed to us by our forefathers. That's the tremendous infrastructure that we inhabit, that we take for granted, because it works so well, that protects us from things that we can't even imagine, and we don't have to imagine because we're so well protected.
It's over. Nobody wins.
If you want to see a new and better world come to fruition, as I do, then like, share, and subscribe. You can find an incredible amount of math, knowledge, and 3D renders by clicking on the channel name. And remember, we need you to help spread this vision across the internet for all to see and become familiar with. Let us build this new world together.